On the 29th of May, 2016, a Ford Explorer SUV was driving down Hana Highway in Maui, Hawaii. The 64-mile-long Hana Highway is often nicknamed the Road to Hana and is a popular scenic drive with more than 50 bridges to drive over, surrounded by waterfalls and native forest. Several witnesses watched as the SUV suddenly swerved off the road, taking a sharp turn and plummeting 200 feet to the bottom of a cliff. Emergency services were called and quickly arrived on the scene. They found 2 people inside the car. Somehow, despite the 200-foot drop, the driver had only sustained a couple of injuries. However, the passenger had not been so lucky and was pronounced dead at the scene. The 2 occupants of the SUV were identified as 37-year-old twin sisters. The deceased passenger was Anastasia Duval, and her twin sister, Alexandria Duval, had been behind the wheel. The Duval sisters had been born in Utica, New York in 1978, but as children, they had gone by different names, which they decided to change together as adults. Anastasia had been named Anne, and Alexandria had been named Allison. The twins remained close throughout their childhoods and teenage years, especially after their mother passed away when they were both only 5. As young adults, Anastasia and Alexandria moved to Palm Beach County, Florida, and used their shared passion for health and wellness to start up a yoga studio together, which they called Twin Power Yoga. The business venture was a success, and soon they were running multiple studios. They quickly became well known in the local area for driving around their matching Porsches, and they had a reputation for being eccentric and outgoing in the community. One year, the twins were approached by a producer who wanted to make a reality television show about their lives. Both Alexandria and Anastasia were excited about the potential of a TV show, and when the producers advised them that they should rent a much larger and more expensive studio space to film in, the twins agreed. However, the plans for the show ended up falling through, and the sisters quickly found that they could not afford the rent for the new studio. Before they knew it, they were in a significant amount of debt. According to Leslie McMichael, who worked as a spiritual advisor to the twins, the reality show falling through was when the twins' lives really started to spiral downwards. By 2014, Alexandria and Anastasia decided to close Twin Power Yoga Studios overnight. They blindsided their employees, who were left without jobs and never received their final paychecks, and also ripped off their loyal customers who had prepaid for expensive memberships. The Duval twins' reputation in Florida was now shattered, and a local gossip site even referred to them by the nickname, the Terrible Twins of Yoga. Instead of making amends, the pair decided that they would relocate to make a new life in Park City, Utah. They even decided to write a book, which is why they legally changed their first names to officially become Alexandria and Anastasia Duval. While living in Park City, the twins tried to get back into the yoga and wellness industry, opening one small studio in the area. However, they hadn't been able to leave their financial failures behind when they moved away from Florida. They were still significantly in debt, and each of them owed around $150,000, which neither of them could afford to pay back. In the end, they had no other choice but to file for bankruptcy. The twins' time in Utah is also when they really began to fight with each other. They had personality differences that caused them to clash often. According to their spiritual advisor, Leslie, Anastasia was more timid and the sweetest, kindest, most level-headed person you would ever meet, whereas Alexandria was more controlling and had a big, dominant personality. The difference between the twins was magnified when they got drunk, and in Utah, they got drunk a lot. In January 2014, they ended up being banned from a local restaurant for getting too intoxicated and causing a scene. They also got into a car accident where their car ended up in a ditch after they started fighting behind the wheel. When the cops arrived at the scene, they tried to stop Alexandria and Anastasia from pulling each other's hair out. The twins fought with them too. By the end of 2015, the twins had relocated again, ending up in Hawaii on what they described as a religious quest. However, their journeys towards peaceful spirituality didn't appear to be working out for them. Only a few weeks after they got to Hawaii, both of the sisters were arrested for, quote, terroristic, threatening, and disorderly conduct. Regardless, they eventually settled into life in Hawaii, moving in with their boyfriends so that the four of them could all live together in Maui. Romantic attachments had always been hard for Anastasia and Alexandria because of their extreme codependency. They had never really lived with anyone apart from each other, and they found it difficult to find partners who understood their close bond. Their spiritual advisor stated Alexandria and Anastasia realized that love was not in the future because they were so codependent, adding that she would joke that the only people who would understand them were a pair of male twins who would understand that they needed to be together. On the weekend that the crash took place, Anastasia was meant to be on a romantic camping getaway with her boyfriend, Frederico Bailey. However, Alexandria hadn't wanted to be left out, so she invited herself on the camping trip as well, causing an argument between her and Anastasia. At one point during the trip, Frederico was left alone while the twins went somewhere without him. He noticed that they were in a much better mood when they returned, but then realized that they had gone out to buy alcohol, and now they were drunk. Frederico was upset by this. He knew Anastasia had a drinking problem, and she was a completely different person when she was under the influence. One of Anastasia's previous partners had described the twins as being great people when they were sober, but the minute they started drinking, they were like Jekyll and Hyde. Frederico took a moment to himself, trying to calm down, and when he came back, the twins had driven off in the SUV. Shortly afterwards, the vehicle plummeted off the cliff. Investigators spoke to several people who had watched the incident, and from the way the witnesses described the crash, it became clear that it may not have been an accident at all. Multiple people agreed that they had heard the twins yelling at each other as they drove past, and it sounded like they had been arguing about something. Several witnesses had also seen Anastasia reach over from the passenger seat to grab Alexandria's hair, and they also believed that she had been trying to take hold of the steering wheel. Before the SUV swerved off of the cliff, Alexandria had accelerated quickly before pulling the steering wheel all the way to the left. It didn't appear that she had tried to slow down when she realized the car was going off the road. Instead, she sped up and had driven off the cliff intentionally. Based on the evidence at the scene, investigators confirmed that Alexandria had made no attempt to brake. On June 3, 2016, the police located Alexandria Duval staying at a hotel in Maui. She was placed under arrest for her sister's second-degree murder. Although Alexandria was initially held without bail, only 5 days later, the murder charges were dropped due to a lack of evidence, and she was released back into the community. However, despite the judge ruling that there was insufficient evidence, prosecutors working on the case were still able to bring it to a grand jury. In October 2016, Alexandria was indicted by the grand jury, causing her to be arrested a second time. She was in New York at the time of her arrest and transported back to Hawaii, where her bail was set at $3 million. In February the following year, she was released on bail. Alexandria's attorney filed to have her case dismissed, but when it was denied, Alexandria then decided to waive her own right to be tried by a jury. At her trial in 2018, Alexandria's attorney argued that the crash had been nothing more than a tragic accident, claiming that Alexandria was heartbroken by the loss of her sister. Despite the eyewitness reports and the evidence of an extremely dysfunctional relationship between the twins, the judge presiding over the case found that Alexandria was not guilty of her sister's murder. That's 10 Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, I'm the host, and thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast. If you're a brand new listener, this is the first episode you're checking out. What a weird one to first listen to. They're not normally like that at the end. Usually there's some closure. There's some type of, and this happened, it's all over the end. But that one, you just kind of got left hanging a little bit, I feel like. But, I mean, it is what it is. And like I said, if you are new, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts, probably where you're listening right now. And you can email me, joe@10minutemurder.com. And here is one of those emails. Hey, Joe, I'm an OG listener to 10 Minute Murder, have told so many people about your podcast that I lost count a long time ago. Now, anytime I see one of them somewhere, we usually end up talking about one or more of the stories from the episodes. So the reason I'm writing is because there was a short period of time years ago that you had a 10-minute murder song, but it disappeared quickly. Can you play it once for old time's sake? Love you and the show, Terry in Arizona. And Terry, I almost forgot about that song. Yeah, I can, if I can find it, I would definitely, but you know what? This is recorded. I can just hit pause and me talking right now and go find it. Hold on. All right. And through the magic of recording, I will now play the 10-minute murder song that I have not played in years because I'm not really a fan of it anymore. I liked it for a second, but then I'm like, I don't like this anymore. So I stopped playing it, but it's going to close the show this time. Don't get used to it because I'm not going to do this probably ever again. So here it is. Goodbye.
10 minute murder. 10 minute murder. 10 minute murder. 10 minute murder. 10 minute murder.